do I have a motion to convene?
So moved.
Second? Cynthia?
Aye.
May I have a second?
We just need to do a roll call. We don't need to have a motion to open.
Okay, so let's see, Cynthia,
Here.
Erwin,
Here.
me. Corey said she would be coming later. Megan won't be here, so, okay, we are convened. And looking at the agenda, the first thing I see listed here is next meeting dates.
So can I flip this a bit and can we move to what the roster will look like after this meeting? Because that might influence your meeting dates.
Sure, yes. Yes, well, the chair will certainly be turning over since I am bowing out
Mhm.
as of, I guess theoretically today, so after town meeting, it will be, the composition of the committee at that time.
What members do we have returning?
Corey
returning.
is officially, I believe, off at the same time that I am, although she can re-up for one more session. So I
She
hope
needs
she
to
will
get-
do that.
Right, but she needs, sorry to keep it, she needs to be nominated and approved by the select board,
Yeah.
or the town manager.
Well, Megan and Erwin, I believe, are one more year. Erwin, is that correct on you as far as you know?
Correct.
And I believe Megan is in the one more year status, the same as you are, both for your first terms. So Cynthia, I believe you are
Off.
off. And I do notice that as currently posted on the town website, the membership is not up to date. So neither Corey is listed nor Megan at this point.
Okay,
And I did send a note on that, but I'll double check just to make sure that something happens in that regard as far as the website is concerned.
right. So you need to get a new member from the school committee and you need to get Corey reappointed by the select board. Is that correct?
Correct.
But otherwise, do you have a quorum?
Yes.
You do?
Well, there should be, assuming that your membership appointment, your replacement appointment goes through.
Right, but that needs to go through this.
Erwin will be here and
Right. But that
me-
needs to go through the school committee and then to the select board. I don't know how fast that's gonna happen.
okay,
So I just don't want you to call a meeting or have somebody
Right.
call a meeting when they don't have a quorum.
Yeah, the select board, I don't think is going to meet. We're meeting at town meeting. And then I don't think we're going to meet again until June 30th.
Right.
Because the delegation is going to Nanai, Japan.
Good for them. And you.
And June 30th is also when we're hoping that the Comcast contract will be discussed before the select board.
And do we need another extension for that?
No, we don't. No, as long as
Oh,
it
good.
happens, then we'll be fine.
Okay, so I would just say, yeah. It's a little tricky because you have to have a meeting to maybe have a chair, so you have to figure that out.
Let me mute myself.
Well, yeah, so you'll have Erwin, Megan, and Corey still on the board who could meet, but is it in the chart?
Doesn't she need to be reappointed though?
Right, by the select board. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Mhm.
Terry, to your knowledge, has anybody been reappointed by the select board to this committee?
No.
We can't hear you if you're talking.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
Yep. Yeah, okay, it finally unmuted. No, they have not. We need a letter from the chair, Vince, or Megan, saying that you want to be reappointed. And it should go to the current chair, Mary Hartman, and the next chair, who's probably Mark Howell. Send it to both.
Okay.
And they might be able to do it at town meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Before town meeting, we're meeting every night, so if you send it right away. In fact, can you send it today? It might make it for Tuesday's meeting, but probably not. That agenda's pretty much done.
Well, I guess the question, we do need Corey to consent to be appointed, right?
Yeah,
Corey is, the phone call you just heard was Corey, and she's having difficulty getting on, so I'm
Oh,
gonna
okay.
resend her the Zoom link right now.
Okay.
Erwin, do you have any preference or interest in becoming either the chair or the clerk?
Neither. I've got lots of responsibilities in my life and I can't take this on.
Okay, Terry, I think we're gonna need a little bit of discussion time. Probably not today.
about,
I'm cycling off. I've been
Right.
right,
out
right,
here 2 terms.
right.
And what I like to do is, if we pick this up at number 7, where it says mission statement, because I have some thoughts on a way that would at least indirectly, address the, session of the advisory committee on the 30th, I believe.
I'm not following what you're talking about. What,
Well, if the board is meeting on the 30th, as Jason mentioned, to make the presentation on the Comcast contract.
June, it's June 30th.
I mean, June 30th, yeah, excuse me. I think that, well, I don't know, but I have a idea about the future of the committee that I'd like to discuss.
Okay, so just to save time here, I am also cycling off. So
Yeah.
I think what you need to do, somebody from this committee, Vince or whoever, needs to talk with Mary and Mark about your ideas. Number one, you want people reappointed. Number two, you want to be on for the Comcast contract. Number three, the mission statement and ideas. So to send an email listing those 3 things and let them figure out if they can fit it in the agenda June 30th. It's already super busy, but they might fit you in.
I know that the Comcast is already set. Shannon and Andrea have been talking to Mary about that for a while, and I don't think Mark has
Good.
any concerns. So that's set. And since this committee already voted to recommend it, I don't think we need a representative from PAC there, although it would be nice if there is one, if,
Yeah.
somebody shows up just to answer questions about the process.
Right.
I'd love to
Okay.
do that if I can.
Yeah, and I will also send a note to Mary and also Mark. Mark is somewhat aware of some of my general opinions on both PEG access and about, its future mission, which I think may or perhaps should change significantly. But again, that's item 7 on the mission statement. So I'll try to make comments on that if we have time.
Hi, Corey.
Hi, Julie. Hi, Vince.
Okay,
Maybe Vince, maybe you want to ask Corey if she's open to reappointment now so we can get that moving.
Okay, Corey, we were just discussing the status of various members following town meeting. Town meeting is usually the time when everything recycles. As far as the membership on committees is concerned, you have been here now for 3 years and are eligible to take up another 3-year term. And the question under discussion right now is, what are other members doing? In my case, I'm cycling off. You and Erwin and Megan, Erwin and Megan are on for one more session before their 3-year terms are up. You are potentially up for a second session after town meeting. So the question under discussion is whether you are interested in serving another 3-year term.
And I have to make that decision right now?
No,
No, it would be in time for the board to be
Okay.
able to, the select board to reappoint you if you wish to do so. And if not, then you would be cycling off as of this meeting, basically. As will I.
Okay. I think I'll cycle off.
All right. I had hoped that you would stay on for one more term just because of the kind of the governance issues that will be coming up, but it's fully understandable.
Well, who would be chair on the next term?
We don't know yet.
Yeah, you don't even have a quorum at this point. So Erwin and Megan are the only ones eligible to be just to remain on the committee. And then Cynthia, as she's leaving as school committee, and we need a new school committee rep, and that they haven't voted or decided who that will be yet. So we're just trying to figure out who the select board would appoint or reappoint to the committee. So we'd have to work with the select board on identifying through the community interest forms who might like to serve on the committee to be appointed so that a meeting could be convened to kind of decide on who's chair and how to move forward.
Okay. I will cycle on for, what am I cycling on to? Vince?
Well, I mean, it basically would be another 3-year appointment to this committee. You can always resign anytime, but if you stay
Okay.
on, it would allow at least a
Okay.
meeting in June to happen without major changes.
So I don't have to give you my firstborn?
No, but just $10,000.
All right. Oh, it's only money.
Just a Boeing
Well,
747.
nobody will have $10,000 after this.
I just want to say that we have precedent that we've had other committees in this situation, and Corey can stay on until we find another member. If you don't want another 3-year term, Corey, or you're undecided, you can stay on while we are recruiting another member, so
Okay.
that we will have a quorum June 30th.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So yeah. So would you prefer that, Corey?
Yes.
Okay. So Terry, in that case, what would you like Vince or I to do to communicate to the select board on what we're asking them to do? Do they need to do anything, or can she just stay on until we find more people?
She can just stay on. You
Okay.
just have to notify them, because Mark will be chairman then.
Okay.
You just need to notify them of all the things that you want on the agenda, whatever those things are. I've heard 3 things today already: the Comcast, possible appointments, and possible mission or charge changer. Sounds like we might not be ready for that 3rd thing, or even the 2nd thing. I don't know. Whatever you're ready for, you want to
Okay.
put in that email to Mark and Mary.
Okay.
Okay, I will do so.
Terry, are you also cycling off as our select board liaison?
Yes.
And how about Carlin?
Carlin's just a resident. She's on the
Uh,
FinCom, but I don't think she serves as a FinCom liaison.
No, and
Uh,
I'm not allowed to join the PEG Access Committee or any other committee because we have to remain our independence or some such.
Oh, so you're on just as a fan.
Yes, she
Oh,
is.
you know, I'm thinking about creating my own fan club called Friends of MMN. And we won't be a town committee, we'll just sort of meet and we'll say, okay, what do they need help doing? Okay, should we advocate for this? Do they need to raise money? And do it kind of off
Okay.
the side, because that
Right.
may be most effective for me at least. Anyway, so.
Carlin, I thought you were the FinCom liaison this year.
No, the only thing I'm liaison is for, Light Board, Public Works, Warner's Pond.
Okay,
I do this for fun.
okay.
Okay. So we're definitely just so I'm clear, we're losing, well, say goodbye and thank you to 3 people, Terry, Cynthia, and Vince for sure.
yes.
Yeah.
Erwin and Megan are staying, and Tori is gonna hang in there until replacement. Okay, got it. Thank you, everybody.
Julie, have people been telling you how delighted people were by the coverage of the 250?
Yeah,
Fantastic.
They are singing your praises like you would not believe.
That's
Right.
awesome.
Really, really happy and impressed.
definitely.
Thank you.
Superb.
Thank you very much. Team effort. I'm
Julie,
glad everybody
The whole thing was, but they're really, they thought it was remarkable. And you should know that Diane Clymer was on the viewing stand. Her daughter called her from India and was watching it from there.
Oh, that's
Perfect.
cool.
That's what we wanted. This was too important. We couldn't do it any other way.
You did it.
And there are many residents who could not get downtown. They couldn't figure out how to deal with the buses. They were handicapped. They couldn't walk from the bus station, museum to, or whatever. And they watched it on MMN and they were very happy to see it.
Oh, good. That's great. Well,
And
that's what we're here
loved
for.
the Jumbotron.
Right.
So thank you for coming up with that.
Well, it's our pleasure to do it. That's
So what
you know,
else are you doing?
this is why your local cable TV station is very important,
Yeah.
you know?
And
Your
thank you for
local-
all the coverage of the other events. It's been fantastic.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Our
Oh, yeah,
pleasure.
so much
I
to
know.
choose from.
I know. And we've got it all up on YouTube.
Yep.
Julie, I think I've also mentioned to everyone that you were actually providing the feed that, all of the Boston networks were really utilizing.
Yes.
And that's really, a great distinction, I think. As I understand it, they had their own reporters and maybe one cameraman just to, focus on the reporter, but it certainly wasn't the overall feed.
No, ours was the feed. Ours was the feed, and Channel 5 especially used a lot of our footage, and they were grateful for that.
Right.
So
And among other things, I hope, Julie, that this is going to put you in a kind of a one-up situation in terms of the local Emmys.
oh, thanks. That would be great. That
By
would
the
be
way, how does the nomination or the submission process operate on that?
for the local Emmys, I don't know, but I know how it operates for our like cable access world, and which leads me to announce that we won another award. We won a national award. So last time we won the Hometown Media Award, just the New England region for our coverage of the library's 150th celebration. But they also have a national larger competition too. And we won in the category of student podcast. So we had a couple of 5th graders that come here and they do a podcast. They talk a lot about sports, and we submitted and they won the national award of best student podcast.
Wow.
That's fabulous.
I have to tell Lori Hunter that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Is that the Alliance for Community Media? Is that the organization?
exactly.
Okay.
Did the 5th graders know they won?
Yes,
Oh, good.
we told them and their mom who Their stage mom.
Do you have an official notification of that?
No, but I will write it. I will send it to you.
That would be awesome. I'll forward it on to this chair and to Dr. Hunter
Great.
and copy you.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to item 3, which is listed as minutes. And I want to make 2 comments there. One, is cycling off, and we are tardy as a committee in keeping our minutes up to date. I will finalize all of the minutes which have not been submitted and pass them through whatever is the appropriate mechanism when I do it to get the committee approval, and then they will be posted. But there is nothing that anybody else needs to do at this point.
Well, so the next committee would need to approve them.
Yes, correct.
And most of them won't, half of them won't have been there for the meeting, so a little bit difficult, but it happens a lot.
Right.
Uh-huh.
The other thing, and Jason, I have a question for you, and that's on the more general topic of minutes keeping in light of the AI companion that's now included with Zoom, and the practice of other committees and actually utilizing that AI companion. I know that other committees have been using it to various extents. I think for our last meeting earlier this month, which turned out not to be a meeting because we didn't have a quorum, I believe I actually got a AI companion summary of that from, whom was it from? Actually, it must have been, Andrea was already gone. In any case, I did get a summary of it, and it didn't highlight all the points that are legally needed in minutes, but it came very close. And I don't know if that topic has come up more generally, Jason. Is there, any thoughts or any opinions had on, kind of what the workflow has been in the recent past and what it might be in the future?
Yeah, I know that a lot of committees and their staff representation have utilized AI to try to create a framework to start with the minutes, but I haven't heard of anybody just exclusively using a product because you're often trying to tell a story of a meeting, and there are certain things that a chair or clerk want to emphasize about what happened and might want to record in more detail, and the AI might only kind of skip over a lot of content that it doesn't think was very interesting. So if you're trying to build on a larger topic that's going to cover multiple meetings, sometimes it's a little light on what it presents. And I've heard that feedback from folks who use AI, that they'll sometimes start with the Zoom AI summary or use another feature like or another AI or LLM like Notebook LM from Google. And that seems to provide a really good kind of overall briefing document or summary of the meeting that you can kind of start as your framework, but it still does require some human intervention. And like you said, there are some required elements, especially surrounding votes and membership and attendance, things like that, that the AI tools are not always reporting in a convenient way. But it certainly has shortened the amount of time that people spend on minutes. I've heard some people who used to spend 3 to 4 hours on longer meetings and now are spending under an hour or 30 to 45 minutes. So it's certainly a tool, but I haven't heard of anybody just being able to click a button and generate solid minutes that can be voted on by a committee.
I did have a conversation with Kari Tari, it's over a year ago now, on what are and will be and probably will not change soon as far as the legal requirements, as you mentioned, about itemizing votes and making sure that all of that information, complies with the various legal requirements to do that. And I think we ended up that discussion that's saying, when it got closer to being practical, that it would be worth taking up that topic again, at minimum from, you know, the legal requirements standpoint. See what might be passed on as, you know, maybe general guidelines to be in compliance with that. And then, you know, see if there was anything else that, you know, either the town clerk or, you know, some more general information exchange could go on to, you know, as you just mentioned, to, you know, make it more universally usable. But maybe that's the topic for sometime soon, but not now.
Mhm.
So moving on to item 4, I think, Jason, I think you covered that already in terms of the Comcast contract wrap up.
Yeah, I can just add a couple things to say that Comcast has finalized and agreed to all of the side letters that they had promised during the negotiation. So we have our kind of complete package and a presentation ready to go to the select board where we will outline the changes in the proposed agreement and, you know, answer any questions about the process that the select board might have. Sue has talked to them before about how we embarked on this, but we can do a quick recap and talk about the process we went through and then what resulted from it. And then hopefully the select board is supportive and we get that executed. We've confirmed with Comcast that they're in agreement with everything, you know, not just in principle, but in language. And the good news too is that nothing has changed since this committee voted to recommend it. So there was one question that we had about cleaning something up. It turns out to have been a Scrivener's error that Sue had made when she was copying something. So nothing has changed, not even in a small way with that agreement. So, and all the side letters that we assumed were going to be there are there. So we feel very good about where we are and we're excited to bring it to the select board.
And
And,
I really want to thank Jason for putting in so much time over several years. He and Sue worked diligently. There were so many details and a lot of patience required.
Yes,
Uh,
great.
Jason was always professional and calm during some really screwball things that happened. So he and Sue caught all the details and really were very, very meticulous. And we're very fortunate to have them both.
Oh,
I
thank
second
you.
that.
I third. Fourth.
yeah, Jason, I want to thank again and just repeat what Terry said, you know, for both you and Sue. I think, you know, done a great job. I know that we got our extra HD channel. And it seems that, you know, you went as far as you could go in terms of getting some kind of listings going on, even though Comcast doesn't seem to be able to do that. It certainly was not for lack of trying, you know,
Yeah,
on
that's just
you
true.
and Sue. So, you know, I think you and Sue have done a great job.
Well, this committee did a great job in hiring Sue because that happened just before I joined the MMN family. So I'm very grateful that you guys had the foresight to get somebody as professional and with as much experience as Sue, because she really was the linchpin here with her industry experience and her knowledge of these things. And, you know, Terry and Sue and I will always be kind of like war buddies who went through something very strange and tedious together for a
Yeah,
period of
tedious.
years. And it was a good process. So thank you, Terry, as well for participating.
And I will not be at the select board meeting on the 30th unless you need me to be.
Yeah.
But if you want me to send in a letter for the packet or some, you know, if you need something, let me know.
Okay. I
Okay,
will.
great.
Thank you.
I'm guessing, but I'm thinking that Carlin Reed deserves.
I
probably-
was just gonna say that.
Okay. Well, because I'm guessing that you're the one who lined up Sue. Am I correct, Carlin?
Well, it was a team effort, remember?
Yeah.
We had a lot of people, and it was really important that we have an adequate quorum, which is an answer, Vince, to what you had asked me earlier. Yes, we changed the charge to reduce the number of people so we could have a quorum to make the meetings, so we could vote.
Yeah.
It's kind of important, but thank you anyway. No, you folks deserve all the credit. And it's a real pleasure to watch you and to be part of this whole process. And like I say, I'm forming my own fan club, so yay, team.
Carlin ran a very good process to select
Right.
the consultant and,
Yes. Yes.
so I think that was really important. So we did have another person or firm, and we decided to go with her. And I think it was really good to have them. We interviewed them, and I think that's what we decided, that would be the best selection because of her deep experience. And I think it really did pay off. So
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, Carlin is understating her role. She
Yes.
yep.
she really
Always
was
does.
critical and at a critical time in PAC's history to help get us to this place. So thank you, Carlin.
Well, Carlin, thank you for being a spark plug on almost everything that you do. So,
Okay.
You're welcome, I think. Now, go on,
moving
go on,
on,
address your
you
meeting.
know, moving on from one peak to the next, we are now, Julie, at the MMN update.
Okay. So as we already talked about, the 250th was great. On our live stream, we had about 12,000 viewers. So that's amazing. That's so many views that we actually, there are now commercials when you're on YouTube and you're trying to watch it. Commercials will interrupt you because there's that many views. So that's exciting. We got a message from the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism. And they, I guess with their, maybe through Beth Williams, but they saw our coverage of the parade and they asked me if they could use some of our footage for their own promotion of the 250th in Boston. So I think that's okay legally. I said, if you could credit us, that would be great. But you know, we're public television, so I presume they can use it. If not, maybe I should ask Sue, but I assume that that's okay and exciting. So now that that's the 250th is over, we've done a lot of work with Carlisle. Our relationship with them is just growing, and Ryan McLean, the town administrator, is asking us to do more and more. So we just filmed their Carlisle town meeting just a couple days ago on Sunday. But prior to that, Ryan asked us to create 17 videos that were warrant explainer videos, 17 of them that Tori did. And, you know, he wanted to get them out there before their town meeting so residents could understand what a yes and a no vote meant. They got a lot of views. One of them got 600 views, which is a lot for a little,
Yeah.
it was a lot for a little town.
Mhm.
So
About
those, so say again?
I was gonna say it's about 1/5, but not quite.
Yeah.
Um,
Their town meeting was May 18th. And so at the end of April, we started filming with him. And 17 different videos. Sometimes he's in them, or sometimes he's interviewing somebody, or he has another town official in it. So they're all posted on the Town of Carlisle YouTube page. So then when we got to the actual town meeting last Sunday, it was only one day, but it was about 7 or 8 hours.
mm,
They did it on a Sunday at 1 p.m. They did it at their public school. They chose that time frame with the intention of getting families to come out, hoping the weather would be mild and the kids could play on the playground, which they did. They also had a food truck. So to help parents, you know, kind of make a day of it. And they also had a lot of babysitters on hand too.
mm. Interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. And they use electronic voting too. So we live streamed that. And that was a success, no problems there. But Cynthia, the school committee was there because they were voting on,
Humanities.
yeah, the bathrooms at the field. So Dr. Hunter was there, but Carlisle, I'm sure you heard, voted yes. It passed.
Yep.
So now that Carlisle is behind us, next up is the high school graduation that we're going to be filming and live streaming. That's going to be Saturday, May 31st.
Yep.
And we're gonna have 3 cameras, a live stream. Matt will be directing that again. And we're working with facilities here at the school to make sure we have everything that we need, you know, and also working with Peter Kelly, IT, to make sure that the Ethernet is available to us. And we're going to have risers out on the field where our 3 cameras are going to be. We're going to have signage that says, you know, our logo on it. And just kind of repeat what we did last year. And I did send out an email to Dr. Hunter and the principals. And I said, you know, if regarding the 3 children, the 3 students who we lost, if you are going to be doing anything special for them, let us know.
Mhm,
We could post a photo or a video
mhm.
while they're talking. And we can add that in anytime, you know. So we
Good.
want to help them in any way that we can with that.
Question, and I hate to even mention this because it hasn't happened in a long time.
I know.
The R word,
The R word. I don't know. I don't
what
know.
would you do?
What's the R word?
Rain.
Oh, that word. Like today?
Yeah, we haven't had rain out at the graduation. I can't even, it must be like 15 years. But they go mostly in the gym, and then they have I mean, somebody should just talk to administration about it, because they usually have a live feed in the auditorium, and I don't know. So,
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think if I looked at the long range forecast, it looks okay, but it's still a little far out to take that to the bank, right?
Yeah. No, but that's good to know for us to just have a backup plan ready.
Because
Okay.
if it's like this, they can't be out there, you know.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean,
My
I'll-
dog wanted to go out there.
they had like 2, I remember my son was in high school, and they had like twice in a row in the old high school, they had to go inside. And then it's like, it's ticketed, and it's not fun, you know, it's for everybody. It's definitely a bummer. So this is
Okay.
something to consider,
All right, I will.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to them. Thank you.
better than a surprise on they
Yeah.
usually call it, they have to,
Hmm.
but yeah, because we haven't done it in new high school because they have all night live right after. So they we haven't done that dance yet.
So if they have all night live after graduation, then the gym's probably
It's that
with
yes,
stuff.
it's just worth checking in with them about it,
okay.
you know, because
Oh,
I know they do have a
Julie,
rain plan.
Julie, if you're prepared, it won't rain.
right.
Exactly.
right.
Thank you,
Murphy's Law.
Corey. Yep.
Okay. So like I said, graduation is on Saturday the 31st, and the very next day, Sunday, June 1st, we start loading in equipment for Concord Town meeting. And Sunday we're going to be working with the same group, Thistle. And those are the people who were behind the scenes helping us with the 250th equipment. And they also did town meeting last year. So we're going to be loading in, and on that Sunday, and then of course, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we have town meeting. And leading up to it, of course, we've been filming a lot of warrant reviews, the League of Women Voters, as you probably know, they've been doing a lot of that. And we've been filming them and getting them up right away, just like we did for Carlisle, so people can understand what their yes or no vote means. And we know we're going to be doing electronic voting this year. We've been talking with Carmen, participating in her meetings. And we'll be having a pre-production meeting with Thistle, setting everything up, monitors and the whole works. We'll have 6 or 7 cameras again this year. We have our crew ready, and we'll be live streaming that as well.
Awesome.
Great.
Busy.
Yeah.
Did
And
you
that's-
mention? Okay.
Oh, one other, we have a new podcast
I was
now.
gonna say.
You were?
Yeah.
Okay, so Megan Zamudo came in and she launched the first episode of her podcast, which is going to be called Civic Concord. And it's a platform where she wants to talk about all municipal things. She wants to have different guests, maybe Carrie one episode. And her first episode was with Carmen, talking about the process of town meeting and, you know, all the details of that. So we're going to put that on Spotify, and we are going to really advertise this one, since the content is so timely and it's all about town meeting. So I'm going to send it to the Bridge and send it to Donna for the town website, put it on our own social media, et cetera, et cetera.
Awesome.
Yeah, Civic Concord. So that's great, because some other towns who have municipal stations like we do, they're doing it too.
Yeah.
So we're doing it with Carlisle, and I know our colleagues in Tingsboro are doing it. So we're ahead of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so those are my highlights. Oh, I'm sorry, one other thing. We have a summer intern. You all know Polly Meyer from Concord 250th. This is her son, Griffin, who's in college.
Yep.
He goes to Kenyon College in Ohio. He's home for the summer, and he's talented with filming, editing, screenwriting, and he started today.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's an interesting setup. We don't pay him. The school pays him. They got a donor to pay him, and I just need to do some paperwork, you know.
Yep, a lot of colleges do the stipends, which is great.
Stipends, yeah, that's what he said. So those are the highlights.
Oh, Megan, I have a question. Julie, I have a question on your relationship and any ongoing activity with the Bridge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Celeste, I reached out to her, and we agreed we want to collaborate as best we can. For example, we collaborated sadly on the student funerals. We kept in touch with her and gave her the information. Oh, that was the other thing I forgot to mention. Of course, we did live stream for Jimmy and Maisie, two of the kids. We live streamed their funerals, and we gave that to the Bridge so that they could advertise the live stream and, you know, all that information. And no, so I feel good about our relationship with the Bridge. They're a nice group over there. No problems.
There is a kind of a formal, or has been in the past, kind of a formal discussion of that topic, including the FCC, which sponsored a study that a couple of decades old at this point, but still entirely relevant about, it was titled Information Needs of Communities, dealing specifically with, in particular, the governance aspects of the PEG, franchise, or, kind of a assignment there, but also really applying also to the education and public part of that. But again, it was, commissioned by the FCC, and it's a very thorough study. It's, I think, 800 pages long, as a matter of fact, but undertaken by the Knight Foundation and the Carnegie Endowment. And the opportunity they're really looking forward is really in consideration of what would be good in any case, but what is even more important now, obviously, with kind of the lack of leadership on a national basis, is maybe to look at that again, because it applies specifically to communities and what may be done on both a municipal basis and a regional and a statewide basis. So at some point, I think it would be useful to look into that. That same topic has been taken up by Harvard Law, and in their case, it refers back specifically to events which occurred in the 80s, when Newton Minow was chair of the FCC at one time. And Newton Minow is best known for a statement that was very widely circulated and publicized at the time when he referred to local television as a vast wasteland.
Oh, great.
And by that, he meant really that all of the programming was the same, that it was, entirely entertainment oriented, and, really didn't take advantage of the media for, in particularly, information, not necessarily even hard information, but almost any kind of information at all, aside from, soap operas and primetime television. But it is, well worth revisiting that at some point, and maybe even, taking up the torch and starting off again, because in fact, there are a very large number of public access television stations all over the country, particularly on the East and West Coast, but even in places in the middle, like Carmel, Indiana, and several locations in Minnesota that really have a very active public access television. So that kind of segues into item 7. I believe we've covered item 6, Cynthia, in terms of the PAC membership and what it will be following a town meeting. So moving on to item 7 on the mission statement. Erwin, there was one thing there that was potentially pending, and I think it was either from our last formal March or April meeting. And we had discussed a subcommittee that I believe you and Corey were potentially going to undertake about best practices following a contract signing. And in the past, really what used to be called the Concord contract responsibility in Concord committee basically disbanded after the 10-year contract was re-signed.
Yeah, as I recall, we were talking about right after the contract gets signed is looking at if there are any other bodies that have the town running public access to see what sort of rules of the road that they may have already in place that we can look at that would, in a sense, protect everybody if something happens. Not that it would, just, some guideposts as to, here's how everyone else seems to run it. And I don't know, and Julie, what we would need is some help as to who else is in similar ballpark as Concord, as the town is actually running the access. Because when the access runs it, they have their rules of the road, but it's different because you don't, it's not town employees. And, you guys have some risk.
Sure, I can get a list together.
Yeah, if you could get a list, I could at least, send them a note saying, hey, and I wouldn't be surprised if only a few have anything. But I think it's really worth thinking about because something will happen and you want to be able to open up a piece of paper and say, hey, this is what we have all agreed to as to how we're going to handle it.
Yeah.
Julie, I wonder if you might question on how things operated in Lexington when you were there.
Lexington was a nonprofit,
Right.
and they had a board. So they were not a town government. They were not a town department and not town employees.
Now, as I understand it, that board changed its name not too long ago to the Communications Committee. And as I recall, also, they actually were responsible for 3 contracts, so it was a little bit different than Concord.
Mhm.
And I don't think they necessarily, I don't know, you know, when the terms of those contracts expired. Did they expire on a regular, the same schedule? I believe that they ended up maybe just for historical reasons being kind of staggered. You know, there was a Comcast, Verizon, and then the third one was RCN, I believe.
Yes, yes. Which changed names to Astound.
Yes, yeah, I know they changed their name. I believe that Comcast was on a 10-year contract, and they still seem to prefer the 10-year contracts. As I understand it, Verizon fairly recently, meaning at least until about 5 years ago, was started about 5 years ago doing 5-year contracts.
Hmm.
And of course, the question, Jason, and I don't know, I think it got asked a couple of times, is how in the world can Comcast sign a 10-year contract, you know, in the current technological era?
Yeah. I don't know. It's definitely shifting pretty quickly. I think that I think in their minds they have some adaptability based on the current reading in the Cable Act, and then I think it's just lobbying to see how that could be expanded in case they want to shift their service delivery model to get away from cable TV and move that to something you know, more digital.
Oh, that actually reminds me, I was going to ask you, do they have an escape clause in the contract if they discontinue?
No, I mean, they still have the requirements that were in the previous contract in terms of providing cable TV service to customers. I think it would be more outside of our agreement, a request to interpret and change maybe or expand the definitions of some things. But what we have in our contract is definitely in line with all the other contracts that Comcast has in other communities. So we don't have anything worse or better. It's just kind of the standard, like this is the services that we provide. These are the laws that govern, you know, what we're required to provide.
Yeah, I know there certainly have been a lot of industry rumors about the possibility, and I believe this is a negotiation tactic on their part, and I don't want to really get into the weeds on, you know, trying to describe what it is, because I'm not sure that I know completely, but the largest pot of revenue that the local TV stations get currently, aside from advertising, is the retransmission fees that they get from Comcast or Verizon or the other providers for basically letting those entities broadcast that on cable. And they are apparently under what's now called ATSC 3, since things are changing there. It's been a period of intense negotiation on their part for making sure that they still get some form of revenue, if not the retransmission fees themselves, then some alternative to that, which, you know, the technology may permit them to do. But, you know, without going into that, it sounds like, you know, maybe the cable TV part of Comcast is no longer going to be cable TV, or at least the biggest part of it. And that actually leads me off into the mission statement. And Erwin, in addition to what you had described, and that would probably be the most significant thing regarding what happens after town meeting, but looking downstream from there, and actually some of the work that's been done now by the study committee, you know, by MCI, and even by the town meeting committee, is that I see an opportunity to look at Envision 2030 and noting that we are now halfway to Envision 2030 as far as the town's long-range plan is concerned. And we are actually at the halfway point, and the halfway point is rather significant this time around because so much has changed, particularly the pandemic, which was the most notable event. But now with things like MCI Concord, we've also seen initiatives at a state level which have really altered the requirements for things like housing, and also, more broadly for the actual lack of a framework, maybe is the best way to put it, where housing, connectivity in the very general sense, including both telecommunications, but even things like, the roads, bridges, and tunnels of Concord, at least the roads and the bridges, maybe not the tunnels at this point, unless they do something very creative with, the Route 2 circle. And it would be very worthwhile to think about putting all of that into, some kind of a framework marking the halfway point on the way to 2030. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or comments on that. But I think it would be a very worthwhile for that to be taken up somewhat more formally.
By this committee or?
Well, not necessarily by this committee, but maybe by some offshoot or parallel operation going on. Corey, I think one of the topics there, from the standpoint of governance, not only at the local level, but clearly there is something that more broadly applies to the state, in terms not only of being able to, maybe provide some kind of a municipal formalization of what might be done on the local level, but also something might be done on the state level.
Mhm.
It just seems like
We have
I'm
basically,
amazed how deep the federal reach is on different things that we use every day that I thought was beyond the reach of the federal government. So I have no idea how. I'd really have to do some research here.
well, I'm thinking along the same lines, basically, is that, to some extent, the state could do well by seeing what responsibilities it can take up on its own, not under the guidance of the federal level as significantly as it has in the past.
They're not good at planning. Or if they are, the committees seem to function independently, and reports get put on shelves and disregarded. But I can see if they what they do have in place.
Now, Carlin, you're familiar to some or very substantial extent on what's done at the state level. In fact, as far as, of course, PEG access is concerned, because the state, has a department called Department of Telecommunications and Cable. And you used to be an employee there, and we are one of the 16 states, I believe, that does have some kind of a state level organization covering this. And I don't know if you've had any thoughts on what kind of additional role that state organization could and perhaps should take on.
I left there 10 years ago. Really haven't kept up too much with what the DTC has been doing. At least I'm trying not to. Can't really quite help you there. All I know is that the whole regulatory scheme that I grew up under and that we grew up under has changed to be as deregulated as possible. But there's still some consumer protection measures that are available, I believe, and there's still some oversight over the cable franchise process. That might be about it.
Yeah, in fact, the town has adopted, the legislation on the state level. It said that, the franchise fee funds must be dedicated to basically the public access television activities. And I had questioned that before, about the kind of the strength of that regulation. And it is, in fact, embedded in state law, and it would be really, breaking state law to apply those funds to anything else. On the other hand, there have been some national studies that have been done, not on a national level and not by the FCC, but by independent groups. There's a study that was done out in Oregon, for instance, that tried to find out how those franchise fees got utilized. And in fact, only a small fraction of those cable franchise fees ended up being used for public access television. And that included large and small communities. The more notable places were areas like Austin, Texas, and New York City. And the franchise fees there, and particularly in New York, were very substantial. They were over $100 million a year. And
by franchise fees, do you mean the subscribers' money that goes to the station?
yes, it's basically the 5%.
Okay,
and,
of a subscriber's fee.
yes, a subscriber's fee.
Okay, and that is the franchise fee.
Those are the fees that are paid on paper by the internet service providers such as Comcast for the privilege of putting cable into the ground and utilizing, public space to do that. Jason, you could, kind of update me on that. But we get, I believe it is 4.8%, Jason, is that correct? And the other 0.2%, I believe, goes to pay the state telecommunications and cable department's budget.
You
Is that-
lost. Does it go to, are we talking about Concord subscription fees go to, what's the breakdown between the 4.8% and the 2%?
Well, I think what he's suggesting is, so in the contract, in the Cable Act, it says that we can get a franchise fee of 5%. Comcast argues that the amount that they pay in a license payment, which is a 50 cent per subscriber per year payment, should be included in that 5%. And so when they calculate the percentage of gross revenue that they paid historically, they have lumped in those two things together to kind of equal the 5%. In our new contract, they don't do that. So they're actually giving us 5 full percent plus this annual license payment. And so, and I think the license payment, to Vince's point, is supposed to be equal to some charge of something, but it is the best indicator we have of how many subscribers that Comcast has at any given time, because you can simply multiply the license payment by 2 and you get that many. That's how many subscribers that Comcast had in that period.
Yeah, I forgot about that headcount payment. There is a payment that is made out of that, I believe, to sustain the Department of Telecommunications and Cable too on a state level, isn't that
Yeah, I'm not sure.
2%? Carlin, do you remember what that is?
No, I don't recall offhand, but there is a component that goes to the state as well. You're right.
Yeah. Okay, again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on that, but what it turned out more generally on a national level is that when it was investigated, it was discovered that many people do not have, many municipalities, obviously all of them having, internet service providers, but a majority of them do not have public access television. In some cases, it's simply because they are kind of in the, in some cases, the standard metropolitan statistical area, but they take that as a kind of a benefit in the sense that they don't have to expend local time or effort or volunteer effort to managing their own local public access television. It's really, and they are comfortable with the coverage that's provided by the major municipality and that's statistical area. And what it turns out is that they still collect the 5% amount and utilize it for other municipal budget activities.
And isn't that against the law?
It is, but there is no enforcement mechanism as far as the FCC is concerned. And it apparently has never been enforced. And apparently one of the reasons it has not been enforced is because of the kind of the periodic exchange of political viewpoints between Republican and Democratic administrations and the membership of the FCC. There's 5 members of the FCC board. And when there is a Republican administration, they have 3, the Democrats have 2. When it's a Democratic administration, it's the other way around. The activities of that committee are so arcane that they are not well understood and that thus not very well covered by Congress in any case, regardless of what party is in control. So they really end up being both a policy making and a policy enforcement activity and kind of operate under their kind of their own initiative.
This is the FCC?
Yes.
Oh, good.
And that has not changed. The current chairman of the FCC, who is now Republican, has the nickname of I think his nickname is kind of the father of 5G at this point. And so he's been very active in making sure that that gets promoted. And it doesn't look like the FCC is suffering quite the same attrition as maybe some of the other departments in Washington at this point. But in any case, without going too far down that stream, it suggests that there may be opportunity, jumping again from the state level to the municipal level, is seeing what the opportunities and best paths might be for Concord to decide what it can do, and at the same time, really provide a framework, considering Envision 2030 and what that might help as far as MCI Concord, MBTA communities, from the standpoint of housing, green space, and all of the other objectives which Concord would like to pursue.
Well, it seems like from everything I'm reading, they're cutting funds and firing people that have anything to do with helping people or communities on a
Unfortunately,
national level. So I wonder if we want to raise our heads, or if we just want to keep our heads down and beg forgiveness if we do something that's considered wrong.
that would certainly be one way to do it.
Because I can't pretend that I understand what's happening right now. I mean, it just seems like a dedicated campaign to ruin the country, but
or whether we should indeed look at what Governor Healy, or in particular Mayor Wu in Boston,
okay.
how they are trying to engage on the national level at this point.
So I just think that regarding the specific future of this committee, we currently have a charge,
Right.
and it's very sort of targeted to the Comcast agreement, which is about to be signed, I think. And that I think it would be useful for Jason to contact Mark and sort of review what as a committee, our responsibilities are. Because we could stay as a committee, but meet, in my opinion, the committee could meet much less frequently.
Mhm.
And just sort of, keep tabs on how we're doing with the new contract, and then the budget for MMN, sort of those kinds of things, which are so very important.
Mhm.
And we want to be sure that MMN stays healthy financially. I think that, to me, that's that's part of the contract. That's part of the committee's core responsibility, and so important now to the town.
Right.
So that, to me, should be, the ongoing mission is keeping the entity that we now have some responsibility for healthy, and supporting them. So I just think it'd be valuable, Jason, and whoever your replacement is, to sort of decide because we serve at the pleasure of the select board, and, so it's ultimately you with Carrie and the select board really what we do, and we provide value to those entities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Right, thank you.
So,
Yeah, Jason and Terry, I did revisit the charge of the select board to PEG access. It was updated in 2021, which I hadn't realized before looking at it a few weeks ago. So maybe what we can do offline is to review that, because in fact there is also an overlap between there and the the now named technology department, that was previously the IT department.
Mhm.
Jason, you know anything about that?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Sounds familiar.
Well, I think, as was said earlier, I think we updated to reduce the quorum. One of the main things, so we could, as was said, we could have a meeting and not worry too much about that.
Right.
So, but I think it's important that with so many boards and committees, that the select board and the professional staff agree about the value and the mission going forward with the now finished, at least for a little while, finished work with negotiating that contract with Comcast.
Yeah, by the way, this does not affect MMN, in any way, shape, or form, Julie, as far as I know.
Mhm.
I have done a very limited polling there. As a matter of fact, I polled one other individual who's still active in town government, Court Booth, about his opinion on this, and he was the person who, in fact, named and what is essentially the founder of what was then called CCTV,
Mhm.
which was then the nonprofit, that was responsible for both for the cable TV committee, as it was then named, and also the predecessor of MMN, which at that point was called Concord Carlisle Television. CCTV has another designation, which of course means closed circuit TV, which mainly means surveillance, and that was a little bit confusing. But in the case of Concord, it meant Concord Carlisle TV.
Right.
And his thought at the time, in fact, was simply to, and this was as of several months ago, was really potentially to disband the committee, because in fact, all of the basic day-to-day, month-to-month, and annual operations of MMN really now are under the auspices of the town manager as a town department. So,
That's kind of what I was trying to say in a
Right.
kind way.
right,
That, if the select board still sees value in the committee and or not, that's kind of up to them,
Mm.
in my opinion. So, but that's something I think is worth having a discussion.
I agree.
I
Yeah.
agree too. That's what I think should be on the agenda. They may decide that staff is handling it well enough that, there doesn't need to be this committee, or maybe this committee needs to meet only a couple times a year. I really don't know what they'll
Right.
decide, but it should be discussed.
Good.
Okay, so we are at, and let me see, what is our time frame here? Well, we're getting very close to 4:30
Mhm.
is when we wanted to adjourn anyway. So we are now, and do we have anybody from the public in the audience at this point? I don't see anybody.
Alan?
Any comments from anybody else?
I just want to thank you, Vince, for your service, and Terry for yours for coming to these meetings, and Cynthia for yours. So thank you all for participating in this committee and your service to local government.
It's been a
Right.
pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I know, I hate to say this, we'll see you at town meeting.
Thank
But
you,
it'll be
everybody.
fine.
Thank you, everybody on the committee for all your service. And thank you, Jason and Julie and your whole team for
Thank,
everything you do.
thank,
Thank you, thank you.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, so, Erwin, Corey,
Yes.
Cynthia, yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
I say aye. Erwin, you said
Aye.
aye.
Yeah.
Okay, we are adjourned.